Hello, my name is Chipola. My candidate number is 0536 and my sensor number is US 163. I would like to develop an economic analysis on the death penalty. The death penalty, otherwise known as capital punishment, has seen long-term debates all over the world. Supporters believe that the death penalty is not only moral, but helps stop vicious people from committing barbaric crimes. Abolitionists, however, believe that this punishment is not only useless, but unethical. I would like to discuss the financial aspect of the death penalty to assess its cons, pros, and why I strongly believe that capital punishment has no place in a modern society. It's important to note that government officials should only consider the use of this method if its advantages outweigh the disadvantages. Abolitionists don't believe that the benefits ever do exceed the cost and go further to state that we only believe they do because of its application throughout the years. To make their case, they tend to compare the death penalty with the next worst penalty, life imprisonment. They argue that the assignment of prosecutors, defense attorneys, jury selection, the investigation, pre-trial hearings, appeals, and the trial itself costs more than locking individuals into prisons without parole. And based solely on statistics, they're right. In California, for example, taxpayers have spent more than $4 billion on capital punishment since it was reinstated in 1978, or about $308 million for each of the 13 executions carried out since then, according to a comprehensive analysis on the death penalty's costs. Furthermore, if the governor of California decided to change the sentence of each death row mate to life imprisonment, the state would instantly save $170 million per year, a total of $5 billion over the next 20 years. Moreover, if California did away with the capital punishment altogether, they would save $1 billion in just 5 years. It is quite fascinating how a state in dire need of improving the roads and infrastructure, in great necessity of new schools and hospitals, still feels the need to impose such a medieval-like system. This sincerely feels like throwing away valuable money that could very well be used to benefit society. Instead, it's being destined to execute people who no longer have an impact on society's day-to-day life. And maybe this would all be worth the cost if the death penalty was overall efficient. Sadly, this is not true either. One of the great reasons advocates continue to support the use of the death penalty is because they argue that the death penalty actually prevents future felons from committing crimes. The truth? It doesn't. Let's take my home state Florida as an example. After California, Florida is the state with the most death row inmates. Florida used public hanging until 1923, until they decided to replace it with electrocution. From 1923 to the year 2000, despite Supreme Court pressures and suspicions that the executions were botched, they kept electrocution as their main source of execution, without lethal injection as an option. They did this because they believed that electrical execution acted as a deterrent. In actuality, criminologists have not found evidence that the death penalty deters criminals. This fact is undeniable, and statistics back up this claim.
From 1976 to 1999, the amount of people executed increased exponentially, from 0 felons to an astonishing peak of 98 felons.
These numbers go against the argument that as time passes, people will start to commit less capital offenses. This leads us to really question why we need to kill these criminals in the first place. If the criminals don't get anything out of this, nor do future felons, then why even bother in the first place? Some argue that it is inhumane not to kill someone else who may have caused so much pain and agony to victim's family. They say that it's only moral to kill the murderer since life is valuable, and thus no one citizen should have the right to kill off another person. The problem with this argument is that it's highly contradictory. If you argue that life is precious and that no one should be deprived of it, but then you kill the offender, you're going against your own ideology. Why is it that the criminal's life is not also valuable? After all, it's a life anyways. Many people, mostly supporters, have wondered why it would be necessary to abolish a law that is so widely approved of. And this is the case in Singapore, where capital punishment is seen as beneficial by 95% of the overall population. It is very clearly not necessary to prohibit the death penalty if it is regarded as good by most of the population. Should we really put the say of the people at stake simply because the economy does not lend perfectly to this method? Furthermore, the only reason why the death penalty is so costly in the United States is because of the arduous trial process that each capital offense case has to go through. In Singapore, however, there are only 2 courts that capital cases could go through, High Court and Court of Appeal, compared to the United States' 4 courts. This means that cases in Singapore are completed in a shorter time span than those in the United States. Thus, a death penalty case is actually cheaper than life imprisonment. So the question of whether or not the country should maintain a status as a country advocating for capital punishment is in the hands of the common citizen. We should always advocate for freedom of expression and for the right to vote and choose. If the people want to maintain the law, then it should be maintained. Supporters state that this is not only the case with Singapore, but many other countries. The death penalty fills the heart of people with a sense of peace and tranquility. If knowing that they will go to sleep with one less murderer or kidnapper in the streets aids in their happiness, then it should be maintained and treasured. Singaporeans also advocated greatly for justice. They know that the families affected by a criminal's acts are forever scarred. If they can alleviate the pain and agony that they feel, then Singaporeans believe that it is their duty to do so. The death penalty is not only economically reasonable, but in places such as these, it brings a sense of justice to the hearts of the people. Finally, the death penalty is not a black and white issue. There is no clear right and wrong, and it all depends on who is analyzing the situation. As discussed, some people greatly advocate for its use, while others believe that it should not be used in any situation. I believe that the death penalty is an outdated method, one that fails to deter criminals, while also being a great cost to the government. Even worse is the fact that these death penalties are being performed with our taxpayer money. My group and I would rather utilize this money to improve our schools, infrastructure, law and order system, and health services. A clear solution to this issue is to alter capital punishment or to completely get rid of it. To get rid of it, either a case could be presented to the Supreme Court,
calling the death penalty a violation to the 8th Amendment,
and the cruel or unusual punishment clause. Another method to abolish the death penalty would be to present a bill to Congress calling for its prohibition. However, this route is very unlikely, especially in today's political climate, since most senators and representatives advocate it. States that still insist on its use could alter the law to limit the crimes that are seen as capital crimes and alter the amount of people that get executed every year. This could lessen the cost to state governments, and it would be of a greater benefit to society. Thank you for your attention. A special regards to these people who made this project possible.